James is eating a lentil soup I made, and I'm going to talk about Mafia Mamma, The Day the Music Died, and the story of Don McLean's American Pie, Jules, Titans, the fourth and final season, and The Red Shadows. So before I do that, though, I'm going to sing a song, because I thought it's the day the music died. Well, let's see about that.
Yeah, Pauline's revived it. I tell you, it's been dead. You know, like almost when Don McLean did that song. It was 1972.
But we'll talk about that later, because I'm going to talk about my song. I wrote this song, Dancing Snowflowers, this morning, January 1st, 2024. And when I sing the songs to you and to the camera and then put it onto YouTube or whatever, I haven't come up with a tune yet. I'm just winging it. So how this tune ends up eventually might be very different. It's just, I'm just winging it and seeing where it goes, because I know I've written the rhythm well, so it should work pretty easily. I shouldn't have to worry about it that much, but we'll see. So here's Dancing Snowflowers. A heavy New Year's snow can bury you. It's cold can really hold a heavy heart and make you feel so dead, though that's not true. This snow will make spring's blooms a work of art. Let losses fall away like falling rain, or like this heavy New Year's falling snow, that's sure to melt once days are warm again. This snow will help the springtime flowers grow. I watch this dancing New Year's snow and know this snowfall's soon to go. It soon will melt to feed a dancing tree. Life dances, now I'm letting life move me. Just let the loss you feel just melt away. And know this winter's snowfall's meant to be. This snow will be a bloom another day. A lovely passing gift we get to see. So all these fluffy snowflakes that you see pass by your window on this New Year's Day, are dancing since they're flowers soon to be. We too can dance when seeing them that way. I watch this dancing New Year's snow and know the snowfall's soon to go. It soon will melt to feed a dancing tree. Life moves and it's a lovely dance to see. And that's it. So I hope you liked that one. And if you didn't, well, it was short, so it wasn't 8.5 minutes like American Pie. So, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So Mafia Mamma, top of the stack. Holy cow, I didn't expect it to be.
Yeah,
Toni Collette.
Looks grody, I've got to say.
Yeah, totally.
Really
I was
grody.
like, should I even get, because I'm not a fan of Toni Collette, really. And
is that her?
Yeah. And she's that Australian woman.
Oh.
Anyway, she plays an American well. And anyway, so we're seeing a lot of movies set in Italy lately. Because there would be a lot of people, Americans probably, who've bought land in Italy because, or properties in Italy because it's been so cheap to do so, right?
Is that true?
Yeah.
It's been that way with Spain. Maybe Italy as well.
It has with Italy too.
Okay. Maybe their economy hasn't been doing as well as the
Well,
economy.
I don't know. We talked about it before, and we were wondering, well, a bunch of people died, and then there's vacancies, and then do you have the problem like Detroit, where there's not enough people paying taxes, and so then the utility bills go skyrocket because still, I mean, somebody has to pay for the water to be treated, right? So maybe they did something like that. Maybe they're like, oh, we need people paying taxes, or our people are going to have to pay huge
what they're
fees
getting
for water treatment and whatever.
From Northern Africa is people who draw taxes. In other words,
well,
so-called refugees.
I don't know how it's working out for them. That's another matter. This movie was awesome to watch, and it's not my kind of movie. There's extreme violence towards men in this, and I don't like seeing violence towards men in that way any more than I like seeing violence towards women. So this is totally a movie that is made for women to watch only with women. You do not want to borrow this movie from the public library and sit down with your new boyfriend and sit there and laugh at it, because there's horrific violence in there. But I mean, the way that they get around it, I mean, this woman, she's been kind of a doormat, I guess, her whole life. She's a house suburban mom. It says she's not a housewife. She actually works a job, and she's paying all the bills, right? So and her husband, he's a musician that still hangs on to wanting to be a musician, and he's working at a coffee shop and stuff like that. And so really she's done the child, the breadwinner role herself. Well, and her kids going off to college now, so here she is, an empty nester, and a whole bunch of terrible things happen. But she inherits her grandmother's mafia business, and she didn't even know she was a granddaughter of the mafia, right? So she just gets this call, and no, you're coming, and he's picked her to be the mafia don or whatever. And anyway, so yeah, that's how the movie starts out. And then there's like a whole bunch of violence, and they excuse it really by, well, there are people coming after her, and so she's having to defend herself, but she goes over the top all the time, right? So this is like extreme violence towards men, and she's obviously, these people that she's attacking and killing, they're surrogates for people in her own life, right? Which is really disturbing. So why would I pick this as top of the stack? Well, for this type of movie, which I don't know if I've ever seen any movie so violent as this, towards men, towards any group, honestly. For this type of movie, though, this is the best I've ever seen. It almost makes you accept this kind of violence as, oh, well, you know, she was justified or whatever. But no, she does flat out murder somebody in the end. So I don't know how you want to accept this or whatever, what kind of view you have on this movie. But in any case, it's really well done. It's really well done. You have to respect the quality of the art, even though it's disturbing. The message, repeated message. Anyway, there's a lot about that that's disturbing. Still, top of the stack. I don't know why. If somebody would have given me the plot line to this, or just shown me like a few key scenes, I would have been like, oh, no way that good. But it did. Okay, so the day the music died. This, I didn't pay attention to how long it was, but it seemed like it was fairly long. They put a lot of work into it. I didn't really write down very many notes. I put, the jester stole his thorny crown. Don McLean says Elvis didn't have a thorny crown. Buddy Holly, plane crash in cornfield. Grand Coulee Dam roll on Columbia by Woody Guthrie. So that, the part where you're like, I drove my whatever to the, that's what he's talking
Drove my
about.
Chevy
is the,
to the levee.
Yeah, the Chevy, that's that roll on Columbia, and that's the Grand Coulee Dam song. So that's what he was going with there. Pete Seeger, Bye Bye My Rosianna. As American as Apple Pie. That'll Be the Day. Buddy Holly got that from John Wayne.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, apparently it was. That'll Be the Day. And then he just put
Well,
Till
people
I
used
Die,
to
right?
say
He
that.
just, yeah, so, okay.
The
Anyway.
thing that makes it great is not taking it from John Wayne, but
Yeah.
that'll be the day. I mean, he's boasting, that'll be the day. And then it says, that I die.
Yeah, it's great. He says he didn't mean that the jester was Bob Dylan or that the king was Elvis. He says the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost heading for the coast means that even God was corrupted. The 60s dream dying. He says a generation lost in space was just about everyone feeling lost in the universe. Nothing to do with the race to the moon, apparently. That wasn't mentioned
No.
at all. And honestly, all I have to say about all this is, I mean, you could look at what he's saying and go, oh, wow, all that art that I thought was there wasn't there, you know, or whatever, or, and be all disappointed about that. Or, you know, there was, one time I was learning to do acrylic painting off and on a little bit, as much as I could, you know, from a neighbor who he was an amazing acrylic artist, and so he was kind of guiding me, you know. I'd show him my paintings, and sometimes he'd be like, oh, well, that's, you know, I like what you've done there, or whatever. Mostly not. But anyway, one day I showed him a painting, and he liked what I did pretty well. He liked how I extended, I was working from a photograph, and he liked how I extended the picture past the photograph so that I could have certain things in the middle and whatever, right? So for composition. And then he said there's an eye on, like, I was a painting of James and my dog Copper. And he said there's an eye on Copper's forehead. And I looked at it, and I'd never noticed it, right? When I was painting it, I was painting upside down, because that's a lot easier to do if you want to get things right. And I was just painting away. And then when I looked at it, I was like, wow, it's obvious. It's there. But I said, I didn't intend it. I didn't paint it in. And he said, yet it's there.
It is.
Right?
It was a good spot.
And so subconsciously, my subconscious put it there, or whatever, right? Because it was very obviously an eye. But it was interesting, and it was very abstract, but you could still, there was no denying it was there. So anyway.
Now, where was that? That was by Dunvegan, right?
That was,
we were.
no, that was Pipestone Creek.
Okay.
Anyway, so what I have to say about Don McLean's songwriting, he was saying, oh, I just, you know, it was flowing out of me, the lyrics. I sat down, I wrote it in an hour or something like that. Yeah. A lot of the time, I wake up with the start of a melody and the first few lines of a song, and I have to hurry and get it down, or I lose it, and then I can build on it from there. But the way I think of it is, my angels have been working on this song all night, and that's what I wake up to. And I think my angels are like the subconscious part of me that keeps my brain working, my heart beating, and whatever while I'm asleep. And you know, it's just as much part of me as me, but we do different things, right? The conscious me and the unconscious me. Anyway, so I would say that that was probably the case with Don McLean. Whether he doesn't believe that he intended these things, they're there all the same. Whether you intended them or not, they're there. So,
I think he's being a little bit disingenuous.
well, I think he is too,
It's
and
way
I think
too
it's,
worked out.
yeah, I think it's probably. Now this is just a hunch. Now he could very well think that he didn't put that stuff in there on purpose, but he could also, at the end, he's talking about the country and country music and stuff like that, and it seems that that's who's embracing his American Pie now, and because they were looking at Garth
cover
Brooks
version.
and stuff like that,
Oh, yeah.
right? And
Yeah, Garth Brooks kind of sounds more rock and roll and
it's not only
rockabilly.
that. It's right now. There's the nostalgia gap, and there's for a sort of revolution, and then there's the later on the like what we listen to now, 30 years from now or whatever, is going to country music will probably sound like that.
yeah,
For the-
it tends to be
So-
20-year delay.
Yeah.
So country and western started to do rock and roll stuff in the 70s, you know. So 20 years after rockabilly, stuff like that. And when you got guys like Creedence Clearwater or John Lennon doing rockabilly, I thought it was country and western, but it was rockabilly, which was more country than it was rhythm and blues. I mean, when a black DJ played Elvis's first record, basically first rock and roll record, it was a cover version of, I think it was Big Boy Arthur Crudup's, Big Daddy Arthur Crudup's, what was it? Kind of forgotten it, but he said we're not going to play it after sunup because it sounds something like it's just country. That's the way he looked at it. So
Anyway.
yeah. Now so let's just look at it. Well, who's the king of rock and roll? American Pie. He didn't deny it was about rock and roll. Right? Who's the king of rock and roll? It's Elvis. And the Jester, well, that's a bit of a stretch, but not much. You know, let's listen to All Along the Watchtower. And listen to it carefully and forget about all the whore hoops that Jimi Hendrix did in the most famous version. It's a Bob Dylan song. There must be some way out of here, said the Joker to the thief. Who's the Joker? Who's the thief? Something like too much confusion. I can't get no relief. And what's it about? This is 1968, and Bob Dylan had been through kind of a rough period. He had a motorcycle accident. Even worse, he had a crash off of drugs. So later on, he sung about the crash on drugs. Taking the cure. I'd just taken the cure, something like that. Sitting in a Chelsea hotel writing Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands for you. It was tough. Why? How did he get on drugs? It'd be amphetamines. And it was, I suspect, so he could tour. Who was touring him around? A guy called Albert Grossman. He was one of the most successful managers in the business. At one point in time, he would have been managing the band, Gordon Lightfoot, Ian and Sylvia. I didn't do that well with him. He managed Peter, Paul, and Mary, about the only people outside of Bob Dylan to make it in folk music and not folk rock. And he was just really running Bob Dylan raw. And so that's the thief. That is the thief. On the same album, Bob Dylan wrote, there are only decent songs on the album, All Along the Watchtower. It's John Wesley Harding's album, All Along the Watchtower, and Dear Landlord. Dear Landlord, please don't dismiss my case. I'm not about to do this. I'm not about to move to some other place. Where was he living? A place called, well, it's near Woodstock, New York. Who was his landlord? Albert Grossman. He lived in a place owned by Albert Grossman, his manager. And he ends it up with something like, if you don't underestimate me, he's talking about money, I won't underestimate you. He's not talking about money there. You don't underestimate me, I won't underestimate you. So he's the Joker. That's how he portrayed himself. And so that was roughly 4 years before American Pie was released.
And well, the
So-
Jokers in card deck, they look like jesters,
Of course.
right? So,
Basically, they're the same thing.
Yeah.
No. So jesters work for kings, right? So the jester stole a thorny crown. Was there? I'm sure there are a lot of people would have thought of Elvis as something like a religious figure. I mean, he sang religious songs, lots of it. That was his favorite music. I don't think it's any
yeah, you like the gospel
accident.
stuff.
It didn't matter to him whether it was black gospel music or white gospel music. He loved it both, and he did great versions of those sorts of things. I don't care for that kind of stuff, but what the heck. So the jester stole his thorny crown. You know, there's a reason why they wanted to hold Woodstock in Woodstock. They ended up not holding it in Woodstock because the residents of Woodstock, they were rich people. Like Albert Grossman, Bob Dylan, the band. Eventually they became rich. And they didn't want a bunch of people squatting. Yeah, you know, like the guy was probably estimating 200,000 people. The guy was organizing, a little guy called Lang, maybe. And a little weasel, entrepreneurial weasel, who was kind of like a parasite on the hippie system. He'd run a head shop someplace, maybe in Florida or something like that, before he made it big in Woodstock. He would have made it huge. I don't know what he did with the money, but you know, the people who backed him up, they chickened out. They backed him up to $1 million, couple of $1 million or something like that. And he told them, get the rights to the movie. You're going to take a bath on the actual... I mean, people were busting down the fences that they'd put up and coming in for free. And it had cost a lot to rent the land and put the stage up and all. And I think the
How's it
Who
going?
was charging $50,000, which is a lot of money.
That's
back,
good.
just for
You
one
want me to
appearance.
get you some seed then?
Are you hungry? So the jester stole his thorny crown. Bob Dylan was seen as almost like a godlike figure. I'm not sure why. I mean, he was good, but the Beatles were better because they combined music with reasonably good lyrics. Generally not as good as Bob Dylan's, but
I'm gonna
around
go
the
get
time
him
of
some seed while
Woodstock,
you're
Bob
talking.
Dylan's lyrics had hit the skids.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you can figure out almost every little detail in American Pie. The chorus is a little bit like, why does he call it pie? I don't know. But the specific details, like Jack Flash sat on a candlestick. You know, like we were, you know, that's about Altamont. Who's Jack Flash? Well, you know, like, what did John Lennon call Mick Jagger in one particular interview? Jumpin' Jack Beetle. Okay, Jumpin' Jack Beetle, because he figured, and not that inaccurately, that Mick Jagger, the first part of their career, he was basically just following the Beatles. One of the first kind of hits for the Rolling Stones releases, we'll say, was something the Beatles, they were just working on. It's called, and the Beatles thought so little of it. Who did they get to sing lead on it? Ringo. But here they give it to Mick Jagger.
Baby. Oh, hey,
And I'm
baby.
telling you, the Rolling Stones cut the Beatles when they did that one. It's called I Want to Be Your Man. I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man. It's repetitive and dumb and all that sort of stuff. But the Stones really make it sound as though they believe it. Whereas, you know, Ringo sounds kind of genial and stuff like that. The Beatles sing pretty good backup and play reasonably good backup. Not like the Rolling Stones, though. The Stones were really chomping when they played their guitars back then. That would have been about 64. And Keith Richards and Brian Jones before he hit the skids. They were hard to beat, I'm telling you. And unlike, you know, Chuck Berry, from what I can hear, he just played one guitar. The Stones had two guitars chomping away. And they weren't playing lead. They weren't really playing rhythm, strictly speaking. Dum, ba, 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 ba. It was, like if you listen to "Live with Me," that's got a great bass line. Now that's '69, and I think it's Mick Taylor playing with Richards, but it's on one speaker, and then they're playing back and forth, back and forth. It's teamwork, and that's what rock and roll should be like. It's not some guy wailing away. That's blues. That's boring. You listen to "Live with Me," and it ain't boring. There'll be lyrics that most people will hate. I got nasty habits. I take tea at 3, and the meat I eat for dinner must be hung up for a week. My best friend, he shoots water rats and feeds them to his geese. Don't you think there's a place for you in between the sheets? Most women aren't going to like that. And but it expresses maybe Mick Jagger's and to a certain extent Keith Richards' view of life, and it's accurate. You don't have to like a message to be impressed by it. Anyway, go on.
Okay, Jules. This Ben Kingsley did a great job in this. It's a show about how people dismiss the elderly and just think, oh well, it's just Alzheimer's or whatever, and may as well not listen to them. Whatever. It's an interesting show. Titans, the 4th and final season. I wasn't even going to get this out of the library, but it was entertaining. Things sort of fell apart near the end there. Like, you're like, okay, why does she get out of the bus? Is it some sort of, like at the end, last episode, the African American woman, she gets out of the bus that's driven by the green-haired, I don't know these characters' names, I wasn't paying attention, the green-haired Chinese American man. He's been driving the RV that these teen titans are in. So, and somehow the car that she needs to drive, which is her boyfriend's car, I don't know who he is either, but anyway, some guy. She's driving, and somehow that car is just there. She's like, stop the bus, sort of thing, and she gets out, and then she's driving his car, and it's like, what? How was his car just right there? It happened to be right there where they were gonna stop. It just doesn't make any sense. And so, is there some sort of? Are we trying to get the message that African American women aren't going to let the Chinese American men drive for them, or they're going to do it on their own? Or I don't know if it's some sort of political message or what, because it didn't make sense that the car was there, right? So anyway, so I was thinking, well, it might be political, whatever. So that sort of fell apart for me, that final episode a bit. But honestly, for a superhero sort of thing, it wasn't bad.
Oh, the Teen Titans.
Yeah, you'd probably know who they all are, but I don't.
I remember when they started. I think they started them in the 60s. So you had Robin there, and I don't know if Superboy was in it. Was there a Wonder Girl or something like that in?
I don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
I really.
So they were spin-offs, kind of like of the Justice League of America, which had Aquaman in it, and Superman, and Batman, and Green Lantern. Flash, I think, was in it. Wonder Woman was definitely